Part 1. The Last Signal. The sky over Varan 3 was dark and heavy. Smoke and fire covered much of the city. The ground shook as the Dravak war machines marched closer. Commander Siratal watched from the top of the crumbling observation tower. Her heart was heavy, but her face stayed calm. Around her, the city was in chaos. Civilians ran through the streets, trying to find shelter, while small Thale defense squads tried to slow the Dravak advance. Keelan, the communications officer, ran up the stairs beside her. "Commander, the Union ships are not responding," he said. His blue skin shone under the firelight, and his eyes looked tired. "We have sent every signal we could, but the only reply we get is silence." Sira turned and looked at him. "Are you sure?" she asked. She had hoped, deep down, that their allies had not abandoned them. Maybe the signals are delayed. Maybe they will come. Kellen shook his head slowly. "No. Sira. The last message was clear. The Union says this sector is lost. They will not come. They have left us here to die." Sira felt a cold knot in her stomach. The Thale had trusted the Union for centuries. They had helped build trade routes, defended borders, and even shared technology. Now, when the Thale needed them most, they had turned away. "We cannot give up," she said quietly. "We will defend our people, even if we are alone." The sound of explosions shook the tower. One of the Dravak bombardment drones had hit a nearby street. Screams echoed through the city. Sira gripped the railing and watched the fire. She could see her officers trying to organize a defense, but their faces were pale, and their movements were hesitant. The Dravak were strong, fast, and cruel. They showed no mercy to civilians or soldiers. Keelan tapped his communicator nervously. "Commander, there is an old relay station nearby. It is abandoned, but it is still functional. I think it can send a message outside normal channels." His voice was full of hope, but also fear. "It is old, from a time before the Union even existed. It might work." Sira nodded slowly. "Prepare it," she said. "If we have any chance, we must try. Even if it reaches no one, at least we will have done everything we could." The relay station was small and covered in rust. Its antennas leaned at strange angles. Inside, Keelan checked the old systems. Sparks flew, and the computers hissed, but slowly they powered on. The station had a simple interface, and it could broadcast a message to any listening species across the galaxy. The problem was, no one knew if anyone was listening. Sira stepped close. "What should we say?" she asked. Keelan looked at her. "Everything. Tell them who we are, where we are, and that we need help. But it must be short. The Dravak might detect it if we broadcast too long." Sira thought of her people, the children hiding in shelters, the elderly unable to move quickly, the families who had nowhere to go. She clenched her fists. "Then send it. We have nothing left to lose." And Keelan pressed the keys. A bright pulse of light shot from the relay into the sky. It carried the message, simple and desperate. "Varan 3 under attack. Dravak forces advancing. We are abandoned. Help needed immediately." Hours passed. The Dravak moved closer. Their ground forces spread across the streets like a river of steel and fire. Sira and her officers tried to keep the Thale squads organized, but every hour brought new destruction. Buildings fell, and smoke filled the air. Civilians screamed, and some soldiers began to falter. Sira stood on the observation tower, looking out over the chaos. She felt the weight of failure pressing down on her. She had trained for war, but she had never faced betrayal. She had never imagined that her people would be left alone to face such power. Keelan returned from checking the relay. "Commander, we have a reply," he said. His voice was soft, full of disbelief. "It is from a species called humanity." Sira frowned. She had heard the name in old histories, but humanity had not been active in the galaxy for hundreds of years. Humanity? She asked. Are you sure? Yes, Kellen said. The message is short but clear. They say they have received our distress signal. They are coming to help. Sira felt a spark of hope, small but bright. She had expected nothing. She had prepared herself for the end. And now, someone, somewhere, had answered. Do we know when they will arrive? She asked. Keelan shook his head. They did not give a time, only that they acknowledged the signal. They are on the move. Sira took a deep breath. The Drevak had not noticed anything unusual yet. They were still confident, still advancing as if nothing could stop them. But somewhere beyond the edges of the star charts, humanity was moving toward them. She did not know if these humans would be friends or another danger, but she knew she had to hold on until they arrived. She turned to her officers. We have a new chance, she said. Do not let fear rule you. Our people depend on us. Every street, every building, every barricade matters. We fight for our families and our homes. Her officers nodded. Slowly, they began to organize the defense again. Soldiers who had been shaking now gripped their weapons with renewed determination. Civilians who had been hiding came out to help build barricades, gather supplies, and assist the wounded. The city began to move like a single, fragile organism. Surviving on hope and stubborn courage, hours passed. The Drevak artillery fire grew heavier. Explosions shook the city, and buildings that had survived the first attacks began to crumble. But the Thale held. They moved carefully, using narrow streets and ruined buildings to their advantage. The Drevak were strong, but they had not faced this kind of organized resistance. Sira and her officers used every trick they knew to slow the enemy, to buy time. In the dark of night, the sky glowed red with fire. Sira watched from her tower as a group of Drevak soldiers tried to storm a barricade near a civilian shelter. She saw a young Thale soldier, barely trained, step forward and hold the line. He fired carefully, using the rules they had learned in drills. The Drevak hesitated, surprised by the determination of such a small force. Sira felt a surge of pride. Her people were brave. Even abandoned, they would not break. Keelan returned from the relay station once again. His eyes were wide. Commander, I am receiving another message. It is more detailed this time. They say they will send ships and troops. They know the Drevak are here. They are preparing for a jump into our system. Sira's heart leapt. She could barely believe it. Do we know what kind of force? She asked. Keelan shook his head. No, Commander. Only that they are humans. From the edge of known space. They call themselves the United Earth Fleet. That is all I have. Sira turned to look at the city again. The streets were filled with fear and smoke, but also with life. People were still moving, still surviving. She thought of what humanity might bring. She did not know if they were warriors, explorers, or something else entirely. But she knew one thing. For the first time in hours, she felt hope. The Drevak seemed to sense the change. Their attacks grew more desperate, more violent. Sira realized that the next hours would be the most dangerous of all. If humanity was delayed, if they did not arrive in time, Varen 3 could fall completely. But she also knew that her people had already begun to fight like never before. They were not just soldiers. They were survivors. She stood on the observation tower, looking out at the horizon. The fires of war reflected in her eyes, but so did determination. Hold on, she whispered. Help is coming. Keelan placed a hand on her shoulder. Commander, whatever happens, we are ready to survive. We are not alone anymore. Sira nodded. She looked to the sky, toward the dark space beyond their system. Somewhere out there, humans were moving. They were coming to a world no one thought could be saved. And they were bringing hope. The Drevak advanced again, heavy and relentless. Explosions shook the city. Civilians screamed. The ground trembled. But the Thale held. They fought with everything they had, guided by desperation, courage, and a tiny spark of hope. The last signal had been sent. And now, somewhere in the stars, humanity had answered. The night stretched on. Fire and smoke filled the sky. The city trembled under attack. But for the first time, Sira and her people did not feel completely alone. Somewhere out there, Deathworlders were coming, and they had the power to change everything. Sira took a deep breath. She turned to her officers. Prepare for what is coming. We will not give up. Not now. Not ever. And far beyond the edges of the system, the first signs of human ships appeared. Their jump signatures were slow but steady. They were coming. The Thale did not know if they would survive the night. But they knew one thing. They were no longer completely abandoned. Part 2. Deathworlders inbound. The morning after the last signal felt different. The smoke over Varan 3 was thick, but it did not feel hopeless anymore. Commander Siratal walked through the streets with Kellen at her side. Civilians were moving cautiously, repairing barricades, and carrying water and food to those trapped in shelters. The Thale soldiers looked more alert, their movements quicker, as if hope had given them strength. Keelan stopped at a damaged communications post. Commander, I have been checking old databases, he said. I found references to humanity. They are different from the Union. They come from a planet called Earth, a death world. Their home is full of dangers. Extreme heat, extreme cold, toxic lands. They survived all of it. They were never weak. Sira nodded slowly. I have heard stories, she said. But they were old. I never thought they would appear for us. Why would humans come to help a small world like ours? Kalen shrugged. I do not know. They do not follow the Union's rules. They act on what they think is right. I think maybe they do not like to see people suffer when they can help. Sira looked up at the sky. The smoke had not cleared, but far beyond, something moved. Long-range sensors had detected jump signatures appearing at the edge of the system. At first, they were small, only 2 or 3, then more appeared, slow but steady. Unlike the precise jumps of Union ships, the readings were strange, heavy, and full of energy. Something powerful was coming. We see them, she whispered. They are coming. Kellen nodded. Yes, Commander. Humanity is on its way. The Drevak were still advancing. Their ground machines rumbled across the streets. Some Thale squads fired from behind barricades, while civilians watched in fear from shelters. Sira moved from one group to another, giving orders, encouraging soldiers, and calming frightened people. Even with humans coming, the fight was not over. Hours passed, and the first human ships appeared in the distant sky. They were small compared to Union cruisers, but they moved with confidence. The sensors showed heavy armor, powerful engines, and weapons that could break through the Drevak's best defenses. The Thale watched in amazement as a single human ship jumped directly into the path of a Drevak scout ship. There was no hesitation, no attempt to avoid fire. The human ship struck, and the Drevak scout exploded in a ball of fire. Sira's officers stared at the screens in disbelief. Commander, what are they doing? Asked one officer. They do not even try to hide. They fight differently, Sira said quietly. They do not fear death the way we do. They are strong. Kellen tapped the console nervously. I am receiving a transmission, Commander. It is translated automatically. A human voice says, We acknowledge your distress. Hold as long as you can. Help is coming. That is all. Quote, Sira felt a strange mixture of relief and fear. The human voice was calm, confident, and steady. It was unlike anything she had heard from the Union or any other species. That is enough, she said. We fight until they arrive. Our people will not fall tonight. As the day continued, the human ships made more sudden appearances. Dreva warships tried to intercept them, But the humans seemed to anticipate every move. One human ship jumped behind a Drevok cruiser, firing with precise timing. The cruiser broke apart in seconds, leaving debris floating in the sky. The Thale could not believe what they were seeing. These humans were not just fighters, they were unstoppable machines of war. Sira gathered her officers. "We need to follow their advice," she said. "If we organize properly, we can survive until more humans arrive. Keelan, keep receiving their instructions. Every signal they send is important." Kellan nodded. "Yes, Commander. They are giving us positions to defend, areas to evacuate, and traps to set for the Drevak. Their methods are unusual, but they work." Sira looked at her soldiers. "Do you understand?" she asked. "We will defend the streets, but we will follow human tactics. We have no other choice." The Thale officers hesitated, unsure if they could trust this strange species. One of them, a young lieutenant named Lyra Ven, spoke up. "Commander, these humans, they are different. They move through danger as if it is nothing. Can we rely on them? Will they even understand our biology? Our weaknesses?" Sira nodded. "We have no choice. They are the only help we have. We will do what they say, and we will fight together." Meanwhile, a human shuttle approached the city. It moved slowly but steadily, landing in a cleared square near the center of town. A squad of human soldiers emerged, clad in heavy armor that gleamed in the sunlight. They carried weapons, unlike anything the Thale had seen, but they handled them with ease. Their movements were calm, confident, and precise. Sira watched from a distance, her heart pounding. The humans did not rush or panic. They did not hesitate, even as Drevak scouts fired at them from the rooftops. Sergeant Aaron Clark led the group, signaling to his soldiers with simple hand gestures. They moved together like a single unit, watching each other's backs and protecting civilians as they went. A human medic, Laura Hill, stopped to treat a wounded Thale soldier. Her kit was strange, with glowing tools and chemicals, but it worked quickly. She did not hesitate. Even when Drevak drones flew overhead, the soldier looked up at her, fear in his eyes, and she smiled. "You will be fine," she said. "Just stay still." Sira felt a strange mix of admiration and relief. These humans were fearless, but they were also careful. They did not waste their strength, and they treated everyone equally: soldiers, civilians, wounded. No one was ignored. Sira realized that this was something her people had never seen before. The Drevak noticed the humans too. Their attacks became more aggressive, but also more cautious. They could not understand these strange newcomers. Their warships tried to fire on the humans, but the human ships jumped in and out of sight, striking before the Drevak could react. The Thale watched as one human ship destroyed 3 Drevak fighters in minutes. It was like watching a storm move across the battlefield. Kellan leaned over the console. "Commander, the humans are giving us instructions for the city. They want us to use the ruins as traps. They are telling us where to position barricades and how to lead the Drevak into kill zones." Sira frowned. "They want us to use civilian areas?" "No," Kellan said quickly. "They are careful. Only abandoned districts. They want to protect civilians. They are brutal, but precise." Sira nodded. She understood. She had faced the Drevak before, but she had never fought with humans. Their style was strange, but it made sense. If they survived in a death world, they knew how to use danger as an advantage. The day went on. Tile squads moved with renewed energy, setting traps and following human instructions. Civilians helped where they could, moving supplies and tending the wounded. Sira walked through the streets, giving encouragement and watching her people grow stronger. Even young soldiers who had been terrified hours before now fought with determination. In the afternoon, the first large Drevak ground assault arrived. Machines and soldiers moved down the streets, confident they would crush the defenders, but the Thale were ready. Following human instructions, they pulled back slowly, leading the Drevak into traps. Explosions tore through the enemy ranks. Streets collapsed under hidden charges. The Drevak were confused, struggling to keep control. Sira watched from a safe rooftop. Her heart raced, but she did not panic. This was the first time in hours that she felt the possibility of victory. Humans had changed everything. Their arrival, even before the full force reached the planet, had given her people courage and strategy. As night fell, the city glowed with fire and light. The battle was far from over, but the Thiel were surviving. They had lost some soldiers, and civilians had been injured, but they were still holding the line. Sira gathered her officers in a small command post. "We will survive the night," she said. "The humans are here. We follow them, and we fight together." Keelan nodded. "Commander, they are moving more ships into position. They say a larger force will arrive soon. We must hold as long as we can." Sira looked at the screens showing the distant jumps of human ships. Each one brought a sense of power and protection. She had never seen anything like it. These humans were not just fighters. They were survivors, born in a world that would have killed most other species. And now, they were here, helping the Thiel when no one else would. In a quiet moment, Sira thought about her people. They had been abandoned by the Union, left to die under the Drevak assault. But now, something new had appeared. Something unpredictable and powerful. The Deathworlders of humanity. She did not know what they would do next, but she knew one thing. They were different. They would not fail. They would not leave her people behind. The night grew darker, and the Drevak regrouped for another attack. Explosions shook the streets, and fires burned in the distance. But the Thiel were ready. Soldiers moved with confidence. Civilians helped without fear. And human advice guided every decision. Sira felt a rare sense of calm. For the first time since the attack began, she believed her people could survive, far beyond the atmosphere. The human ships continued their slow approach. Jump by jump, they closed the distance, bringing hope, strength, and determination. Sira could only watch and wait, knowing that the future of her world rested on the courage of these unknown warriors. And in the heart of the city, Sira whispered to herself, "We will not fall. Not while they are coming. Not while humanity walks among the stars." Part 3. Holding the line. The morning sky over Varan 3 was still red from the fires of battle. Smoke and ash covered the city, but the Thiel were ready. Commander Sira Tal walked through the streets, with Kalan at her side. They checked barricades, watched the soldiers, and gave instructions. Every move was slow, careful, and precise. The humans had given them a plan, and they intended to follow it. Keelan pointed to a ruined building. "Commander, the humans have suggested this as a key defensive position. We can use it to block the main street. If we set up properly, the Drevak cannot advance without heavy losses." Sira nodded. "Good. We need every advantage we can get. Send squads to set up barricades. Make sure civilians are in safe zones." She looked at her soldiers. "Remember, every meter matters. Every person matters. We fight together." The first human ground team had arrived the night before. They were strange and intimidating. Heavy armor, strong weapons, and calm movements that made them look like predators on the hunt. Sergeant Aaron Clark led them. He walked through the Thiel ranks, observing quietly, then gave simple instructions with hand gestures and short words. The humans did not shout orders. They did not panic. They moved as one. A human medic, Laura Hill, treated injured Thiel soldiers. Her tools glowed faintly, scanning wounds and delivering medicine quickly. One young Thiel soldier, barely more than a boy, had lost his arm in the previous fight. He was pale, afraid, and unsure if he could survive. Laura smiled. "You will live," she said simply. "We fix this, then you fight again. Trust me." Sira watched quietly. She had seen many healers before, but humans were different. They did not just treat wounds. They prepared their soldiers to keep fighting. They made the impossible seem normal. By midday, the first large Drevak ground assault began. Machines rolled down the main streets, heavy and fast. Soldiers followed, confident that the city would fall. But the Thale were ready. Following human tactics, they had set traps, barricades, and ambush points. The Drevak hit the first traps and slowed down, confused by the strategy. Explosions tore through their ranks, and soldiers fell back in surprise. Sira ran between barricades, checking her squads. "Hold your positions," she shouted. "Do not let them break through. Watch your flanks." Her voice carried authority, but there was calm behind it. The Thale followed her instructions, moving with precision and courage. The humans joined the fight. Sergeant Clark and his Marines moved through the streets, clearing buildings, protecting civilians, and coordinating with Thale squads. They did not panic when the Drevak fired. They did not retreat when buildings collapsed. They fought with determination that inspired everyone around them. One of the Thale officers, Lieutenant Lyra Ven, ran up to Sira. "Commander, the humans are different. They fight like we cannot imagine. They do not fear death, and yet they protect the weak. How can they be so strong?" Sira looked at the human soldiers moving in the distance. "They are survivors, Lyra. Their world is harsh. They know danger, and they know how to use it. They do not give up because giving up is not allowed on their planet. We can learn from them, and we will survive." In the center of the city, the Drevak tried to break through a barricade near a civilian shelter. They fired heavy weapons, crushing walls and sending debris flying. But the Thale and humans held the line. They used explosives and traps set earlier to block the Drevak. Civilians were moved to safe zones by human squads. Sergeant Clark personally carried several injured Tile to cover, ignoring his own safety. Sira saw the determination in the humans. They were not perfect. Some were wounded, and some were tired. But they did not stop. They laughed quietly between attacks, even joking under fire. The Thale did not understand this at first. But slowly, they realized it was strength. The humans did not fear death. They treated danger like a tool, not a curse. By afternoon, the Drevak had regrouped and sent another wave of attack. This time, they brought heavy machines capable of destroying entire buildings. Sira knew the city could not hold forever, but the humans had taught them new strategies. They fell back carefully, leading the Drevak into kill zones prepared with explosives. One by one, the Drevak machines were destroyed, leaving rubble and fire behind. Kalen ran up to Sira. "Commander, we are receiving more instructions from the humans. They want us to focus on the main street and set traps for the next wave. They say if we follow this plan, we can hold until their main force arrives." Sira nodded. "Good. Prepare the squads. Evacuate civilians as best you can. Every person alive matters." The streets were chaotic. Fires burned, rubble blocked passages, and civilians moved cautiously. But the Thale were organized now. They had a plan. They moved with purpose. Soldiers knew where to fire, when to fall back, and when to advance. Even the youngest recruits showed courage under fire. Human squads continued to move through the city. They checked barricades, assisted wounded Thale soldiers, and cleared enemy positions. Sergeant Clark signaled to his team silently, coordinating movements with precise timing. Explosions rocked the city, but the humans were unharmed, as if danger followed them but never touched them. Sira walked beside Laura Hill as she treated a group of injured civilians. "How do you do it?" she asked quietly. "How do you stay calm when everything is burning around you?" Laura smiled. "We do what must be done," she said. "We focus on the task. Fear does not help anyone. You do your job, and you keep moving." Sira nodded slowly. She began to understand. The humans were not fearless because they did not feel danger. They were fearless because they refused to let danger control them. Their courage was not for glory. It was for survival. And for helping others. As evening approached, the largest Dravik assault yet appeared. Thousands of troops and machines advanced through the streets. Fires and smoke filled the air. Civilians screamed. Buildings collapsed. The Thiel were tired, and some soldiers had already fallen. But they were not alone. Human ships appeared overhead, providing cover fire and suppressing Dravik artillery. Their weapons were powerful, striking quickly and accurately. On the ground, human squads led counterattacks, clearing streets and destroying enemy machines. Sira watched from the command post as the combined force of Thiel and humans pushed back the Dravik. For the first time, it seemed possible that they could survive the night. One of the young Thiel soldiers, a boy named Riel, ran to Sira. "Commander, the humans. They do not give up. They fight no matter what. Can we really survive this?" His voice was full of fear and hope. Sira knelt beside him. "Yes, Riel. We will survive. They are here. They are with us. Follow them. Learn from them. And we will win." The night was long and dangerous. Explosions lit the streets, fires raged, and smoke choked the air. The Dravik were relentless, but the Thiel fought with determination. Following human instructions, they set traps, blocked streets, and protected civilians. Human squads moved with precision, supporting every Thiel group, repairing barricades, and treating the wounded. Hours passed, and the city was scarred and burning. But it still stood. Sira watched the streets from a high building. Soldiers moved like shadows, carrying out orders, helping civilians, and fighting back the Dravik. She saw human squads leading the attacks, fearless and unstoppable. Their tactics were brutal, but effective. The Thiel began to see how humans survived in a death world. They used every advantage, adapted quickly, and never surrendered. By dawn, the Dravik had been pushed back from the central streets. The fires still burned, but the main forces were broken. The humans had arrived with enough power and skill to turn the tide. The Thiel were alive, wounded, but not defeated. Commander Sira looked around at her people. They were tired, but their spirits were strong. They had survived, and it was because of the humans. Sergeant Clark approached Sira, wiping soot from his face. "You did well," he said simply. "Your people are brave. They listened, and they fought. That is why they survived." Sira nodded. "We could not have done it without you," she said. "You changed everything for us." Laura Hill came to check on civilians and soldiers. She smiled at Sira. "It is not over yet," she said. "But you are learning. You will survive more than you think." Sira looked at the city. Buildings were damaged, streets were ruined, and smoke filled the air. But her people were alive. The Thiel had learned to fight like humans. They had adapted, and they had survived the night. For the first time since the attack began, she believed in hope. Far above the city, human ships continued to patrol. More were arriving from the distant jumps. The Dravik would not give up easily. But the humans had changed the balance. Sira knew that with their help, her people could hold the line. They could survive. They could fight back. In a quiet moment, Sira whispered to herself, "We are not alone. We have allies now. We will survive, and we will protect our people." And in the streets of Varan 3, Thiel soldiers and humans worked side by side. They cleared rubble, treated the wounded, and prepared for the next wave. The city was scarred, but alive. Hope had returned, and for the first time in many long hours, the Thiel believed that survival was possible.